I came back from the oil field to my pregnant wife. She said, "It's not yours. I'm leaving you for the tennis coach." I said nothing. Then his paternity test showed it wasn't his either. She was left frantically calling me after he kicked her out with nowhere to go. I always thought the first thing I'd do when I got back would be to take a long shower and bury my face in Elise's hair. I had it all pictured in my head during those brutal 11 months in the oil fields. Every day out there was just gray metal and sweat, and the same faces saying the same things. I clung to the idea of home like it was the only real thing left in the world. But the second I pulled into the driveway and saw the unfamiliar silver Audi parked where Elise's little SUV used to be, my stomach sank. I told myself maybe it was a guest, maybe her sister, a neighbor, but the door was unlocked. And then I saw him, a man, early 30s, with that kind of gym-built confidence and a smirk that said he knew exactly who I was. He was standing in my kitchen, barefoot, drinking from one of our mugs, the one with the chip on the handle that Elise always used. He didn't speak, just gave me this tight-lipped nod like I was some maintenance guy there to fix a leak. And then Elise appeared. She came around the corner wearing that blue robe I got her for Christmas 2 years ago, the soft one she used to fall asleep in while we watched dumb Netflix shows on the couch. Her hair was tied back, and her eyes locked onto mine for just a second before darting away. She was pregnant. There was no pretending it away. Her hands instinctively went to her stomach like she was protecting it. "Nolan," she said, voice thin and tired. "We need to talk." I didn't say a word. My hands were still at my sides, still dirty from the flight and the gas station coffee. Elise looked at Kurt. I learned his name 30 seconds later, and then back at me. "It's not yours," she said. Just like that. No build-up. "I'm leaving you for Kurt." I looked at her suitcase by the door. Already packed. My home, the one I built with overtime checks and bloodshot eyes, already taken apart without me. I looked around and took in the new shoes by the bench. The tennis racket leaning against the wall. My shelf of cookbooks shoved aside to make room for some smoothie crap I'd never seen before. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't sad, either. I just noticed. "You didn't wait long," I said quietly. Kurt opened his mouth like he was going to say something, probably something dumb, but Elise stopped him with a glance. She stepped forward, held out a folder. "It's all here. The divorce papers. My lawyer says it's clean and fair. We can keep it simple." I didn't touch the folder, just nodded. "Be gone by the end of the week," I said. Calm. Cold. I turned around and walked right back out the door. Behind me, she said my name. Just once. Like maybe that would fix something. But it didn't. I shut the door behind me and stood in the driveway for a full minute, just breathing. Homecoming was over. The first thing I did the next morning was call a lawyer. Not some bargain bin guy from the strip mall. I drove into the city, booked an appointment with a firm I found on a sleepless midnight search, the kind that handled people with assets, not just angry couples fighting over IKEA furniture. Her name was Alina Grayson. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, spoken clean, clinical sentences that felt like steel. "I'm not here to fight," I told her. "I just want it done right." She nodded once. "Then we'll do it clean, fast, and with a scalpel, not a hammer." I laid it all out. Elise's confession, the timing, the baby that wasn't mine. The affair. The fact that I'd spent the last 11 months sending half my paycheck home while she played house with some country club clown. "She already has the papers," I said. "I just want to make sure they don't screw me." Alina smiled thinly. "They won't." By the time I left her office, I had a checklist that felt more like a demolition plan. Step 1, remove access. That same afternoon, I walked into our joint bank and withdrew exactly half. Not a penny more, not a penny less, just enough to make it mathematical. Fair. When the teller asked if I was sure, I looked him straight in the eye. "Security reasons," I said. Then I pulled out my phone, logged into our credit card account, and canceled the shared card. Just like that. Gone. No notice. Let her find out the hard way at a brunch with Kurt. Back at the house. No, not a house. Not anymore. Just a building with her scent still clinging to the furniture. I started sorting through what she left behind. Every sweater, every shampoo bottle, every scrap of handwriting on a sticky note. I packed them methodically, labeled boxes, made an inventory. But some things I kept. A broken snow globe from our trip to Vermont. A birthday card she once made by hand when we were still in love. The ring box, not the ring, from the night I proposed on the balcony in Portland, when I thought love was enough. I didn't keep them for sentiment. I kept them the way you keep crime scene photos. To remember. To never forget how something died. Next, I submitted formal notice to the leasing office. Gave them 60 days. I asked, politely, that the full security deposit be returned to me, and backed it with receipts, signatures, and utility bills all in my name. I changed every password. Netflix, Amazon, the Wi-Fi. Gone. The walls felt different after that. Like the house was purging her itself. By the end of the week, I had legally, financially, and digitally removed her from my world. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for anything. I just hit delete. Over and over. People talk about heartbreak like it's fire, something loud and violent. But this was colder, quieter. It was frostbite. And I was learning how to cut the dead parts off. The first call came 2 days later. I was changing the oil in my truck when my phone buzzed. Elise. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before answering. Her voice came fast, shaky, like she hadn't planned what to say. My card got declined, she said. I wiped my hands on a rag. Yeah, I know. There was a pause. Why would you do that? Because we're divorcing. And you're with someone else now. She scoffed, trying to hold on to some kind of authority. You could have at least warned me. I had groceries. Elise, I said flatly, you made your choice. I'm just making mine. Click. I hung up. A few hours later, I got a text from an unknown number. Hey man, it's Kurt. Can we talk? I stared at it for a minute, amused. Then another message came through. I know this is weird, but Elise is really stressed. Can you help her out until we figure stuff out financially? I replied with one line. Please direct all inquiries through her attorney. No name. No greeting. Just cold formality. That's all they get from me now. The next day, Elise called again. This time her voice was different, softer, dripping with that fake concern she used to use when she wanted something. I just think you should know, she said, that I only stepped out because I felt unloved. You were always gone. You never really made time for me. I didn't say a word. You never asked how I was doing. I was lonely. Still nothing. Nolan, she pressed. I finally spoke. You don't get to rewrite this. Not with that guy in my kitchen and your suitcase already packed. Silence. Then the call ended. Later that week, I made a call of my own. Kurt had a sister named Dana. I'd met her once, briefly, at one of those wine and cheese things Elise used to drag me to before I left for the rig. She was blunt, practical, worked as an accountant, and always seemed slightly annoyed with her brother's lifestyle. I found her number in an old email from Elise's social calendar and called under the guise of asking about a misplaced contact. Small talk, then I dropped it in casual conversation. By the way, I said, funny timing on the baby. Elise told me it's due in early September. Guess that lines up with the affair starting. What, March? Dana was quiet on the other end. She said it started in May. Huh, could be I'm wrong. You know how pregnancy math works, lots of overlap, right? A long pause. Then a soft, skeptical, yeah, right. We hung up a minute later. I didn't say anything else. I didn't accuse. I just let the numbers sit there like seeds in the soil. Sometimes you don't need to shout. Sometimes, all it takes is one well-placed doubt and time. I went back to my life, knowing the fuse was lit. And the fire was coming. It was a Wednesday night when the fuse finally reached the dynamite. I was making dinner, just grilled chicken and rice, when my phone lit up. Kurt. I hadn't heard from him since the text about helping Elise out. I let it ring once, then picked up. His voice came through loud and cracked, like he was trying to keep it together and failing. You son of a bitch. I leaned against the counter, calm. Evening. You knew, didn't you? He hissed. You knew the kid wasn't mine. I didn't answer right away. Just let the silence sit. Eventually, I said, that's between you and Elise. Kurt made this choking sound, half laugh, half sob. It was your idea, wasn't it? Talking to Dana. Dropping that little timeline thing like you're so clever. I didn't say anything that wasn't true. She made me take a paternity test, he snapped. Dana pushed and pushed. Said the math didn't add up. And she was right. The kid isn't mine. The kid isn't yours. The kid is nobody's. That part caught me. What do you mean? He let out a bitter laugh. I asked her. Begged her to tell me who it was. She said she didn't know. Said there were others. For the first time in a long time, I felt something. Not pity. Not anger. Just confirmation. He was unraveling on the other end of the line. I ruined everything for her, he said, suddenly quieter. I threw her out. She cried, said she didn't have anywhere to go. I told her that wasn't my problem. Another long pause. I thought I was the prize, he muttered. Turns out I was just next. I didn't say anything. He waited, probably expecting me to curse him out or gloat. But there was nothing left to say. What could I say that reality hadn't already shouted in his face? That's between you and Elise, I said again, flat. Then I hung up. I stared at the quiet kitchen. The stove ticking, the smell of burnt rice creeping in. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel satisfaction. Just a kind of stillness I hadn't had in months. I looked around my apartment, the one bedroom I'd moved into after I filed the lease break. Sparse, a little cold, but mine. I finished cooking, ate in silence. And when I lay in bed later that night, I thought about how simple it had been. A whisper here, a fact there. No shouting, no revenge plot. Just math. Just letting the truth do what it always does. Eventually, it shows up with a mirror. It makes everyone look. I slept easy that night. The fire was out. All that was left were ashes. She called just after midnight. I'd already been asleep for a couple hours, the kind of deep sleep that only comes when your life has been reduced to quiet and routine. My phone buzzed against the nightstand. I saw her name, glowing in the dark. Elise. I almost didn't answer, but something told me this wasn't the kind of call that could wait. I picked up, said nothing. She was crying. Not the gentle kind. The full, heaving, messy kind. Nolan, she gasped between sobs. He threw me out. I'm on the curb. I sat up slowly. Where? Outside his place. He wouldn't even let me stay the night. I stared into the dark. She was quiet for a second, maybe waiting for me to say something kind, something comforting. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, why call me? Because I have no one else, she said. My parents don't want to deal with this, and my sister's out of town, and I don't know what to do. I'm pregnant, and I have nowhere to go. No, I said flatly, you're pregnant, and you made a lot of choices. This is just one of the outcomes. You can't just leave me out here like this, she snapped, switching gears. You're not that kind of person. I leaned back against the headboard. You left me, Elise. Remember? You stood in our kitchen and handed me divorce papers while wearing the robe I gave you. That was a mistake, she whispered. I didn't know he'd be like this. But I did, I said. And you called me a ghost for working too much, but I was building something. I was out there trying to give us a future. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a fantasy. A tennis instructor who'd smile pretty and pose for Instagram. You think I wanted this to happen? She shot back. You think I meant for this to fall apart? I don't think you meant anything, I said. I think you acted. Over and over. You chose him. You chose to lie. And now you're here, at the bottom of your own decisions. She went quiet. Then, a final plea. I made a mistake, okay? I was scared and stupid and lonely. But you don't just abandon someone you once loved. That word, loved, didn't hit the way she wanted it to. Not anymore. I didn't abandon you, I said. I let you go. Like you asked. Nolan, she said, trembling. I'm not your husband anymore. In this, I paused, breathing in the silence. This is no longer my problem. I ended the call. Then I blocked her number. I sat there in the dark for a moment, phone still in my hand, heart steady. No shaking. No guilt. Just clarity. Let her call someone else next time. I wasn't her shelter anymore. She gave that up the day she walked out. A week later, the papers came back with her signature. I read every page, line by line, before I signed mine. No fanfare. No second thoughts. Just a blue pen, a flat surface, and the sound of everything ending with a scribbled name. My lawyer, Alina, called to confirm. It's finalized, she said. She didn't contest anything. Good, I replied. There was one small hitch. Elise tried to claw for spousal support right at the end, filed a motion behind her attorney's back, claiming she was emotionally abandoned and needed financial transition assistance. But she had made too many mistakes. Alina had already compiled the timeline. Elise's affair, her move-in with Kurt, her new income from that boutique marketing job she used to call a side hustle. And then there was the pregnancy, not mine, and now, provably not Kurt's. The judge didn't even entertain it. Denied. I didn't celebrate. There was no victory dance. Just relief. The day I moved out of the house was gray and drizzling, which felt fitting. I'd already packed my essentials the week before: tools, clothes, paperwork, a few things from the kitchen I actually cared about. I didn't take furniture. I didn't take the television or the wall art we picked out together that now felt like props from someone else's movie. I cleaned everything top to bottom, scrubbed the sinks, vacuumed every room, left the keys and a short note for the property manager, confirming my departure date. 3 days later, he called. Thanks for leaving it spotless, he said. Full deposits coming back to you. I smiled at that. It was the smallest win, but somehow the most satisfying. Like I'd closed a chapter the way I wish Elise had, clean and honest. I moved into a small rental outside of Knoxville. 1 bedroom, 2nd floor, windows that caught just enough light in the morning to make coffee feel like a ritual again. No shared closet. No memory foam bed meant for 2. Just me, a chair, a desk, and space to start over. At first, it felt empty. Then it started to feel peaceful. I unpacked slowly. I built new routines: early mornings, solo dinners, quiet drives through town just to listen to music without anyone complaining about the playlist. Some nights, the quiet pressed in too hard. I'd catch myself reaching for an extra fork or expecting her laugh from the hallway. But then I'd remember how it all ended. I wasn't the man she wanted. But now, finally, I wasn't the man stuck in the wreckage either. I wasn't rebuilding the marriage. I was rebuilding myself. And that felt like the right place to begin. It had been about 4 months since I signed the divorce papers and walked away. Life had quieted into something stable. I woke up early. I worked my shifts at the garage. I stopped checking my phone for messages that weren't coming. And for the first time in years, my apartment didn't feel like a temporary stop. It felt like mine. Then one afternoon, I ran into Sam, a guy I used to work out with back before everything went sideways. He recognized me at the grocery store. "Man," he said, giving me a look like he'd been waiting to run into me, "have you heard what's going on with Elise?" I raised an eyebrow. "No, I haven't." He scratched his head awkwardly. "She's back living with her parents. Some small town outside of Johnson City, I think. Had the baby about a month ago." I said nothing. "She's on her own," he continued. "Apparently the guy Kurt, right? Ghosted her right after the paternity test came back. Lost his job at the club. Something about breaking some ethics policy or whatever. His sister spilled the whole thing." I just nodded. Let him keep talking. "I guess Elise's parents are helping, but not much. Word is she's applying for part-time work, trying to juggle the baby and everything else." He looked at me like he was searching for a reaction. "It's rough, man." "Yeah," I said, keeping my tone even. "I'm sure it is." He paused. "Sorry. I didn't mean to." "It's fine," I cut in. "People make choices. That's all." We exchanged a few more pleasantries. Then he left, and I stood in the cereal aisle staring at boxes I didn't really want. That night, I came home and found an email in my inbox from an address I hadn't seen in months. From Elise T. Subject: "What you did." I knew better than to open it, but I did anyway. It was long, rambling, shaky in tone, part accusation, part confession. She blamed me for turning Dana against her, for never fighting for our marriage, for letting her spiral. She said I manipulated things behind the scenes and that Kurt leaving was because of you, not because of anything I did. I read the whole thing once. Then again, there wasn't a single sentence of apology. Not one acknowledgement of what she'd done, only regret about where she ended up. At the bottom, she signed it with, "I hope you're happy. I hope it was worth it." I stared at the blinking cursor in the reply box. Then I clicked archive. No response. Outside, the sun was dipping low behind the trees. I stepped onto the balcony and watered the little herb garden I'd planted in cheap plastic pots, basil, rosemary, and something I thought might be mint. The breeze was light. My hands smelled like dirt and green. I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. Not her, not him, not what they lost. I was thinking about what I was growing now, and how good it felt to be the only one responsible for it.